Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Hour. Today we have a nice lineup of stuff to go over, a lot of news that's been dropping. I think what's going to be taking over the airways probably soon is going to be this update from obviously the Strait of Hormuz, Iran. So we'll be covering that. All right, we have a new Roundhill ETF that will be dropping in the future. Again, these are the makers of the ETF DRAM. We'll be talking about some government stakes in quantum stocks. What's funny was we were just talking about this the other day, again on this stream, where we were talking about, government stakes in these mining companies and Intel. And, we had mentioned, hey, what happened to the whole quantum stakes that they talked about last year? Nothing materialized. And it looks like now, and it's pretty obvious in hindsight, now the Trump administration is starting to take stakes in quantum companies. Maybe not so Trump, the administration, directly, but the government. We'll also be talking about a huge update regarding Bitcoin. All right, Bitcoin and the U.S. strategic reserve for Bitcoin. All right, we got a lot of stuff to cover. I see we have a ton of people in the chat. All right, let's go. All right, let's get it. Today was a fantastic day in the markets. I hope you guys are pumped. And I see we have Randy. Hey, good evening, Eugen. Semiconductor gone wild. GCTS is killing it today. I'm glad to hear that you are happy with that. That makes me happy because that is what this community is all about. We're all about just sharing knowledge, getting it out there. Everybody can make, money. Again, in the community, we discussed GCTS, on the 15th. Shout out to Padre. Shout out to Victor. He was the one that dropped that buy signal. And, congrats to any of the people that did get in. We will be covering a little bit more about GCTS and, kind of the story with GCTS. All right. Moving on from that. So appreciate you, Randy, for being here. We have Sergio in the chat, alive and well. I hope so. Happy birthday. That is a total lie. That is a false flag attack on me. All right. Today is not my birthday, but thank you anyways. We got Pay the Piper, digging the earlier start. Hey, I'm glad. All right. I'm going to try to keep this up as best as I can, but I have a hard 1 hour stop because I will be going live with another YouTuber. I'll put a link in his, or I'll shout him out here in just a bit. I want to get through the chats here. I know Rod likes it. I hope so. He better be watching this. He's the one who said, hey, man, you suck for starting so late. So now I'm starting a little early. We have Skeptic in the chat. Always a pleasure. He says he's having some French fries tonight. Man, I love French fries. All right, which one is better? Burger King French fries, Wendy French fries, or McDonald's French fries? I'm going to just go ahead and say it. Wendy's French fries are absolute garbage. All right, who else do we have? We have Champs 1232. Welcome. Evening, all. Well, good evening to you. Good morning. All right. And all right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we got the technical issues figured out. I ordered a bunch of new RAM, so that stuff is on the way, but I also figured out how to get video streaming, even though I'm on Firefox. Okay. So I just want to do a quick test. We're going to check in on our boy over here. All right. Making sure he's still working. Tell me if you guys can hear this sound. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear this. Look at our boy, man. 199 hours, 249 packages. And I see from Sergio, he can hear it. Perfect. This is excellent. All right, that's exactly what I was hoping for. And I see we have a super chat. Do you have any videos or training on how to search Edgar to find ETFs before they go public? Day one. And that's coming from Mr. Nix. Thank you for your super chat. First off, I really do appreciate it. I don't have a video to be exact. But wow, look at what they're doing in the background. That is crazy. Look there. Look at all these people in the background celebrating 200 hours, 249,000 packages. Absolutely amazing. Let's go. All right. Our boy Figure Robot just doing the most out here, putting in that work. Congratulations to Figure Robot. Let's get a round of applause for our boy out there just doing the work. And they finally ended the stream after 200 hours. This boy was just pumping that out. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. So going back to Mr. Nix, I don't have a video, but you know what? Maybe what I will do, since you put in a super chat, I will make a video for you. The only thing is you have to understand, like, you have to know the SEC, well, not the SEC. You have to know the company tickers, not just the company tickers, but their actual names when you search the Edgar database. But I will find that. I will create a video about that. Maybe I'll post it to the High Yield channel, which is probably the channel you're most likely viewing this on. Okay, anyways, we will get through. All right, so, oh my God. No, you didn't, AP. No, you didn't. McDowell's fries are the best. Dude, I love that movie, man. Coming to America, absolute legend of a movie. All right, absolute legend of a movie. McDowell, yes, absolutely. Bro is still working. This is every CEO's dream worker. Figure Robot, 200 hours, 249,000 packages packed. Let's go. All right. Let's see what we got here. The conveyor belt still running. Let's see what else we have. Sergio, look at all the people behind all the humans. They lost their jobs with this robot. Actually, those are probably the Figure employees. Those are definitely some of the interns too that were challenging this guy. Let's see. Oh no, 200 hours and they ran out of DRAM. Yeah, they probably ran out of internet too. Let's see. Skeptic answering the question for you. So Skeptic does do an SEC dive every single day. You have to know the tickers, the companies, memorize certain words really, but it's easy to do if you do it long enough. So repetition, right? So, maybe Skeptic and I, what we can do is get together after the stream and kind of put together some of the top names, for the high yield filers, or maybe just all of them really. And then just, kind of give you or make a video on how to search the Edgar database. It's super simple. You just have to, try it once or twice. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got through about 6-7 minutes of nonsense, just shouting out everybody, seeing our figure bot, just freaking putting that work. Let's get into the markets finally. All right, let's go. All right, S&P 500 looking like a Christmas tree. All right, doing very well. We have NVIDIA down 1.77%. That should be not a surprise. Okay, every time NVIDIA puts up great numbers, it seems to just want to sell off, right? That's just what the market is doing. Excuse me. That's just what the market is doing. Hope you guys have your coffee. If you don't, hope you got at least an adult beverage, because we got some stuff to cover. Okay, semiconductors, again, I don't know. They're doing okay. I would say they're doing okay. All right, semiconductors over here. Software down, of course. SaaSpocalypse is still in play. We have energy selling off, and that was because of a possible Iran deal, which was eventually sort of true and then not true, and a lot of misinformation going on again, guys. A lot of misinformation out there. Let's see how cooked we are tomorrow. Well, we're looking pretty good. S&P 500 up 27 basis points. NASDAQ 100 up 45 basis points. We have crude starting to climb. It was down. Okay, it was down earlier in the day on this news that there was a potential deal. And then it turned out that, that was a lie. The lie detector found out that was indeed a lie. Gold selling off a little bit again, still hovering, still kind of trading flat, not really doing anything. Bullish coffee, we are up 1.9%. Unfortunately, that means coffee is a little more expensive. Okay, so first thing we're going to cover, S&P 500 up 17 basis points for the day. Not too bad here. All right, if we look at the last couple of days, not doing too much. It looks like it's honestly just trading flat. IGV down 0.97%, but look at this crazy climb right up. All right, so we'll see what IGV opens up. Again, SaaSpocalypse, these are all the software names. You're going to have names in there like Palantir, Robinhood. You're going to have Salesforce in there, Intuit. You're going to have all these software names. And really the big headwind for software is Anthropic and Mythos, right? Had a crazy sell-off, still continuing to, kind of grind higher. For any of our Bitcoin aficionados out there, Bitcoin is more or less kind of following this trend, right? The lovely names of yesteryear are no longer the names. Software dominance over the last decade seems to be going the way of the dodo with AI. AI is absolutely disrupting it, calling into question a lot of these moats. Okay, you have ServiceNow that took a massive hit. You have Robinhood, Coinbase lumped in there. Oracle's lumped in there as well. So I think, this trend looks really good. And, it's starting to show that there's a appetite for software. A lot of people are buying the dip. All right, let's move on to DRAM. DRAM's interesting. We covered yesterday that Samsung was about to have a labor strike. The union, finally said, hey, you know what? We'll pause it for now and let negotiations happen over this weekend. So for Samsung, that's a big deal because, they can't really they can't afford to have their stuff stop right now, especially right now. They're making so much money off of the demand for DRAM, HBM. You also have SK Hynix. You also have Micron up in the mix. So we had a really good day today. Absolutely a fantastic day. And we have another super chat. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. All right. All this money is going straight into the coffee fund. Okay, because I buy coffee. That's what fuels this stream. Thank you for the video. My goal is to find a method to ETFs that have filed and approved. Best case, a trading future date. Excellent. That is actually a really good idea. So you can pre-plan and kind of get ahead of that stuff. We do cover on this channel a lot of new ETFs that are dropping. We can't cover every single one because that would be a full-time stream. Honestly, that'd be a full-time stream. But I do appreciate your super chat, Mr. Nick. It really does mean a hell of a lot of a big difference, and your support is greatly appreciated. All right, we have James Maggs up in the mix. Hey, welcome back. We have Wolf. Good evening. We have Dividend Degenerate up in here. What's up? And we got Butter Knife. Always a pleasure to have every one of you up in the chat. All right. So got to give flowers where flowers are due. And Roundhill, their DRAM ETF has reached $10 billion in AUM. Officially the fastest growing ETF ever launched in the history of ETFs. Absolutely amazing. They are beating out the likes of IBIT. Okay, IBIT, the Bitcoin Trust from BlackRock, from iShares, it took them much longer to even get close to $10 billion in assets under management. It was one of the fastest growing ETFs. And now you have DRAM. This just shows the insatiable demand for investment into DRAM, right? Investors want DRAM exposure. They want that to be invested in that memory trade because that trade is still alive and well. Okay, there is still a memory crunch. It's pretty scarce, okay? It's not really abundant. And again, I always bring this up, but Micron CEO said that their future, supplies are all pretty much paid for and gobbled up, right, by the semiconductor companies. So absolutely something to keep on your radar in case you want to buy in, right? I can't see this going away anytime soon. So anyways, let me fix something real quick. Totally forgot to do this. Give me 1 second here, and then we'll get right back into the news segment. Okay, I got to post this. I forgot to do this on X because, again, X doesn't like to play nice sometimes, so I got to post this. All right, cool. Okay, we are good to go, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's see what else we have. Good evening, everyone, says MJ Bowhunter. Hey, thank you for joining. All right, so let's move on. We have gold. Okay, again, not doing anything. Kind of just trading flat over the, since it sold off. Consolidation, I guess, right? Consolidation. I'm waiting. I'm just patiently waiting. The story is getting even more juicier. Possible 10,000 gold, right? I know that sounds extremely crazy, but possible 10,000 gold. The United States is printing money like it's going out of business. It's absolutely disgusting what the U.S. government is doing. And now you have the Fed, who's getting the new Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, getting sworn in on Friday. And I think he's stuck between a rock and a rock, a rock and Trump, right? Essentially, that is where he's stuck. I would not want to be that guy. We have inflation running rampant right now because of energy, and we still don't have a Hormuz deal. Countries are running out of their reserves. They're using up their reserves. This is going to have ripple effects. This is across not only Asia, but it's starting to happen in Europe, and we're already starting to feel it in America. You have gas at the pump that's going up. Again, all the trucking that happens in America, you have to think all that diesel, everything else. I mean, those costs have went up too. And now you have Frito-Lay or something that just announced that they're going to be increasing the price of their chips. Or I thought I saw a little blip in X. You have some of these, consumer goods starting to increase their prices on things like Coca-Cola, soda, all that stuff, right? So again, it's starting to hit, and they're not going to bring those prices down, right? The last inflation reading was a majority of that spike was due to energy, right? Was primarily due to energy. You have the Trump administration, you have Trump himself saying, "Oh, once the Strait of Hormuz is open, everything goes back to normal. We're going to see a dramatic drop in oil." Yes. But you still have months, and I wish we could have heard that video yesterday, but we still have months of recovery to go for everything to go back to normal. You still have tons of plants, energy producers in the Middle East that have been struck and just damaged. Their infrastructure is damaged. They've shut down the plants, and it's going to take months to get all that stuff back to normal. So this is not, even if the deal happens today, it's not over. It's not going to just, everything goes back to normal. Energy is still a thing, right? Inflation is still going to be a thing. And I see we have another super chat. Oh my God. Funds to support your DRAM upgrade. I appreciate that. I really, really do. Thank you, Sergio. All right. Appreciate having you in the community. Always a riot, man. Always a riot. And I cannot tell you guys how much I support, or excuse me, how much I appreciate your guys' support. Because again, all of this money pretty much goes to my coffee funds. Okay. So again, thank you so much. Thank you. I am deeply appreciative of your guys' super chats and supports. And we have Rodstamon. Glad y'all waited for me. Hey, we're starting a little early these days, man. All right, cool. So moving on from gold. All right, Bitcoin. You guys can see what Bitcoin is doing, right? It's trading flat, a little dip here and there, but it's kind of staying in that range. It is staying in that range, which I'm a big fan of because I don't want it going down and piercing the 200 WMA. It is coming. If it continues to climb, it's going to hit that resistance channel. I don't have a screenshot for you guys. Unfortunately, I don't have a screenshot for you guys, but if it hits that resistance channel and it breaks through, then we climb higher. If it doesn't, we're probably going to chop back down to the 200 WMA, but at some point, the 200 WMA and the bear channel are going to intersect around 75, 76, maybe in June. Early June. And once that happens, that'll be decision time. That'll be decision time for Bitcoin if it goes lower or if it climbs higher. So I'm bullish on Bitcoin. I'm holding it for the same reasons I hold gold, and that is the debasement trade. All right. Thank you so much, Rostamon. I appreciate your super chat. All right. Again, really do appreciate all of you guys and your support. It does mean a whole lot for this channel. All right. This is why, all this community is why I do this. I love, talking with other investors, cutting it up, just talking nonsense, talking finance. We're all just investing enthusiasts. So I really do appreciate that, Rodsamon. Thank you so much. All right, let's move on. All right, so Randy had posted earlier. Let me find that chat. Randy had posted earlier. Hey, good evening, Eugen. Semiconductor gone wild. GCTS killing it today. Okay, so we have GCTS. And just today, up 25%, ladies and gentlemen, up 25%. Absolutely incredible. Over the last 5 days, up 155%. Okay. Over the last month, 167. Right here on the 15th, excuse me, on the 15th, that is when we got our buy signal from Victor from Padre. So again, all the flowers go to him. He's also kind of in the same boat as me. He just loves, doing this stuff for free. It's a labor of love. Okay. So he gave us a nice little tip to consider this for our portfolios. He didn't say invest in it or anything like that. He's not responsible. Neither am I. Okay. Do your own due diligence, not financial advice. But, for those that got in, I'm sure you're very, very happy. 158% gain to, since that call. For me, and I already got my butt chewed out by Victor. I had bought in and then I sold out way too early. I only sold for a very small gain. Then he told me to get back in. And I totally screwed that up. So I missed today's gain of 25%, which would have been absolutely nice. But hey, you live and learn, right? You live and learn. So again, shout out to everybody who is in this name. I'm sure you guys are very, very happy. All right, we also have Vladdy up in the mix. Oh my God, I got to get over this cough. We also have Vladdy up in the mix. Good evening, everybody. We haven't even gotten to the freaking news segments. Already 17 minutes, 19 minutes into the stream. All right, I got a haul butt here. Okay, so why is GCT so important? I opened a couple of new positions. I shared it within the community, and these are very small, guys. These are not large positions. But I opened it in BlackBerry, Nokia, Ericsson, if you guys remember that old telecom provider cell phones, and also T1, okay, or TE, I think it is the ticker. But anyways, why is BlackBerry and Nokia all of a sudden important? And the reason is because these are not cell phone companies anymore. That is not their story. They've actually pivoted to AI infrastructure. Okay, I'm still doing some DD on these companies, but I didn't know that GCTS actually has a partnership with Nokia. Okay, Nokia, Ericsson, and BlackBerry are working on Edge AI, right? That is also a part of the future. That is also the next theme is Edge AI, Internet of Things, robotics, cars, self-driving cars, all that stuff. That is the next kind of theme here. So anyways, Nokia. So GCT actually has a direct partnership with Nokia on hardware testing. IoT field trial, GCT and Nokia Networks partnered with Korean telecom giant SK Telecom to conduct over-the-air trials of low-power LTE technology optimized for Internet of Things. Okay, so also consider this. Satellites. That's also going to be a massive theme in the future. And GCT is working on 5G chips. Okay, 5G chips to beat in that realm. Some people would say that GCTS is kind of like a Qualcomm competitor. In small regards, that's true, but GCTS really is in its own kind of realm. It's a small cap company, okay, high risk, high loss. All right, think about that as well. Hardware integration, the real world trials successfully utilized Nokia's Flexi multi-radio 10 base stations communicating directly with specialized Internet of Things devices powered by GCT semiconductor chipsets. So I don't know specifically what those hardwares are, what the devices are. Something I still need to look into. But again, there is a bright future for GCTS at this current time. Ericsson, okay, another one. They have a partnership with GCT or GCTS, GCT Semiconductor. GCT's relationship with Ericsson is tied directly to Ericsson's infrastructure rollouts and market forecasting. GCT signed a major agreement with the European Tier 1 wireless infrastructure provider, a category heavily dominated by Ericsson and Nokia, to advance its 5G fixed wireless access technology. In its official financial and SEC filings, GCT explicitly states that its 5G chipset production and growth strategy are designed to scale alongside the massive global 5G expansion projects outlined in the Ericsson Mobility Report. So, guys, I mean, this is pretty damn cool if you ask me. Padre, shout out to you. All right, did anyone look at AMPG? Okay, hey, all right, foot and mouth, biting the tongue here. This is the same man that put us onto GCTS. Okay, he puts these calls in the Discord all the damn time. Again, he's not held responsible if you lose money or anything like that. But if you guys want access to that Discord, okay, link is down below in the description. Again, no paywall. There's no memberships, none of that. It's just a bunch of finance enthusiasts. We're just a bunch of nerds that love investing. Okay, so again, there we go. All right, let's move on to another quick win. All right, and this one is going to go to James Maggs, who's also in the chat. James, appreciate you posting this. All right, this is a win inside the community. This is his forecast, his M1 Finance, how much money he'll be making in dividend distributions this year. Okay, now for some of you high yield freaks out there, I know this is nothing in comparison, but this is James. He's building that portfolio. Okay, and he's doing it using a philosophy known as the Income Factory. Dave Bavaria. Yeah, Dave Bavaria is the author. So he's investing in BDCs, he's investing in credit instruments, investing in dividend-paying REITs, dividend, aristocrats, all that type of stuff. Okay, and dividend ETFs as well, and some high yields as well. So congratulations, James. Happy to see the progress, and let's keep it going. Let's keep going. All right, guys, we're gonna move on to our first piece of news here, and that is coming from the SEC Edgar database. From Roundhill Trust. They are coming out with a brand new ETF, okay, called Lyte. And this is the photonics and optics ETF. So DRAM is focused on memory. And just a shameless plug here, if I can get it done real quick. Give me a second here. Oh, I broke it. Hold on a second. We'll come back to that. But anyways, Roundhill Photonics and Optics ETF Lyte. This is, the kind of the part of the supply chain for semiconductors, but not only that, for data centers, and kind of where data centers are heading. They're investing more into fiber optics. They're not, they like copper. Copper Ethernet is a bottleneck. It doesn't transmit data as fast as optics, right? Or as light. So that is what is making this ETF or these names very interesting. You have names like AAOI. You also have, let's see, another name like Corning that produces the fiber optic cables. So, those stocks have saw tremendous upside in the last couple of months because that's where the theme is heading. All right. So Roundhill is trying to, do another one just like they did with DRAM. So they're coming out with the Roundhill Photonics and Optics ETF. We did cover an ETF in the not too distant past called EUV from Corgi Funds. And that is pretty much the semiconductor companies, lithography. So you have Taiwan Semi, you also have ASML in there, but you also had about 50% dedicated to photonics and optics. Okay, so that is going to be the next theme when we talk about scarcity, when we're talking about, demand, because if data centers are coming online, we covered this data center theme where there's, 3,100 data centers planned in the works across the United States. I mean, how much fiber optic cable do you think that is, right? Especially in a data center. If you guys don't know what a data center looks like, I mean, we could take a quick look down memory lane, and you know what? We'll just do it right here. Stargate data center. We'll take a quick look down memory lane, and you guys can see what a data center looks like. Okay, absolutely a massive structure. Each one of these big squares is a data center. Okay, and you have them across. So. And look at all the power generation you have here. This is all being constructed, okay? This is the Stargate project, part of OpenAI's initiative. But imagine how much fiber optic cable you're gonna have in here. Miles of fiber optic cable. You also have, again, the photonics, which is used, as part of the production of semiconductors, things like NVIDIA, AMD. So again, very, very important stuff here. Okay, so anyways, covered that. Hope you guys are as excited as I am. This is, again, going to be I think, whoops, wrong one. There we go. Hope you guys are as excited as I am. I think this is going to be a big deal. We're not going to do a deep dive because I'm running low on time. I'm already almost a half hour into the stream, and I do have to get out of here soon. But this ETF will hold optical transceivers, modules, laser sources, photonic components, silicon photonics, or CFE, integrated circuits, optical interconnect systems, photonic substrates, and wafer materials. That's a big one as well. Photonic foundry and contract manufacturing services, industrial and defense lasers, precision photodetector sensors and imaging systems, fiber optic cable connectivity infrastructure, optical computing and photonic AI acceleration, and related technologies in the photonics and or optics space. So I think this is going to be really, really cool. We have Serial Beggar. Why don't they use multi-story buildings for data centers? That's a good question. I don't know the answer for that. That is actually a really good question. I would have to assume it's probably part of like a risk management thing, because if there was a fire, if there was a fire, like, I don't know, maybe an earthquake, there's got to be something environmental that this is the reason why they don't build them in stories. But that is a good question. That is something I'm actually gonna kind of figure out myself. We have Chi Hang from Malaysia saying hello, Eugene. Well, hello to you. All right. Excuse me, guys. Okay, so now we're gonna move into the breaking news that just dropped as I was doing the stream, and it completely eliminated my geopolitics section. Because this was brand spanking new as it dropped. Oil resumes rally as Iran reportedly wants to keep the enriched uranium within the country. This is a big pain point, obviously, for the Strait of Hormuz, and this is why it's keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed for now, and the negotiations are ongoing, right? There was a lot of, again, misinformation, false narratives, some slight truths in the last couple of hours, saying that a deal was about to be reached. And then you had Al Arabia saying one thing and Iran saying, hey, that Al Arabia, they're the enemy. That's completely false. But essentially, this is one of the last key points I suppose that they are working through, and that is what to do with the enriched uranium. Iran wants to keep it. They don't want to give it off to a third party. But what they are considering doing, and again, this is left up for debate because I don't know if this is true or not, but they will basically water down that uranium, right? And then the U.S. agreed, again, this is all, it could be true, could be false, but the U.S. agreed that they are allowed to enrich uranium up until about 3.5%, which would be far less than weapons grade. Okay, but it would be useful for, energy needs. So I'm not a uranium, nuclear scientist over here. I'm just reading what the articles and what everyone is kind of saying. This situation has been absolutely hard to follow because it's just report after report, unnamed source here, or, insider there, or whatever, just saying one thing or the other. And it's just, the part of the negotiations is Iran wants pretty much the U.S. to leave the Middle East. And, that'll be up to Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. If they want to just help, if they don't want their presence there as well. So again, very fluid, very political situation. I'm not trying to be a geopolitics scientist, but maybe we're finally very close to a deal and we can resume the bull market and get on with our lives, and inflation and all that stuff, energy shocks can come down. Again, the story for 10K gold is looking more real with every single day that the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. You have central banks buying up gold like it's going out of style. And we're going to be covering something very interesting about gold and the United States here in just a moment, okay? All right, let me breeze through the rest of this news. Okay, so we're going to listen to Dan Ives for a 5-minute clip talk about NVIDIA earnings, all right? So let's go.
No more. Joining us now, a giant in his own right, Dan Ives, Global Head of Technology Research at Wedbush Securities. Must get exhausting being right all the time. How do you handle it?
Look, I mean, but to your point, I think it's trying to see around corners in this market. Like when you look at like IBM or Quantum, I mean, we talked about that coming.
Okay, but what did you, I'm being nice, but I'm also trying to make a serious point. What did you see with IBM that others may have missed?
Yeah. Because
we never talk about the quantum story.
I think also it's Arvind in terms of the CEO. I think it's my view that he is someone that's way underappreciated by investors in terms of his ability, no different than Nadella and others or Jensen, to see where the technology is heading. The bet on quantum, the bet on AI. I mean, I really view this like a transformation that's happened in our market at IBM. And I think when you look at this news, this is not the end. It's just like Intel, right? Like this is just the start of these turnarounds. And I think IBM continues to be one that has massive upside.
We've all been focusing on the AI race, but it's like I don't have the bandwidth to focus on the quantum race also. Is the quantum race the same as the AI race? Does it leap ahead of the AI race? Because our guest last hour, when I asked him, CEO of D-Wave, to explain what quantum does, he said, for example, it helps them find and test new materials. It sounds to me like something that we would have said that AI was going to be working on. So yeah. I'm curious if quantum cannibalizes the TAM for AI, or how would you describe its positioning?
Yeah, and that was a great interview. I think what it is and what it does, it really multiplies it. Because I view the AI revolution, the opportunity here, it's $4 trillion being spent in the next 3 to 4 years. We're only 15, 20% through that. Quantum is really what I view as a derivative play on AI. So when you look what's happened here in terms of government.
So do we need AI for quantum, or do we need quantum to push forward on AI?
I think quantum ultimately will be the next level that's going to push forward in AI. And I think that it speaks to our view, whether it's on power, on infrastructure, on quantum. This arms race happened between US and China. You need to see from the White House, they're going to continue to make stakes. No different than Intel, where they've done raw materials. Quantum was going to be the next step. And I just think where IBM is positioned so well on this front.
But to follow up on what Kelly's saying, and we won't get into the energy. If quantum works, the energy demand story changes dramatically. We'll save that for a different day. Where are we in quantum? Is it still a fantasy? Are computers running? What's the Dan Ives view on where we stand? You always like to say what inning we're in.
Sure. So if it's inning, we're maybe in the dugout in warm-ups getting ready for the first inning, right? Okay. In other words, like because right now
game hasn't started.
Game hasn't started. If you look at a lot of the projects that's going on in quantum, they haven't really hit scale. If you look at IONQ, D-Wave, Rigetti, what they're doing, phenomenal technologies now. Slowly, they're going to continue to build that out. But
if it works, though, are you convinced this is all going to work?
Look, I believe that, like, could there be bumps in the road? Yeah, but I believe over the coming years, like, this is a core technology that, in our opinion, it also plays into the fourth industrial revolution. Because it's not just about Godfather of AI, Jensen. It's about, you have to continue to think about on infrastructure, on software, on quantum, on power. And I think that it's our view. That's how we're going to get in NASDAQ 30,000. It's just going to be these other derivative plays.
IonQ up 11%. Some of these names are up 20, 30% today. Not to go on a complete tangent, but Brett, should energy investors be excited by or nervous about energy?
Nervous.
So
because quantum will use, the idea is that, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, it will consume less power to do greater computational effects. So the compute, all the horsepower, the energy used to power all the data centers will narrow out because these computers, if they work, will do more with less. Is that a fair statement?
It's a fair statement.
I've never been interviewed by Kelly Evans before, so I'm a little nervous.
It's a fair statement.
I'm a little nervous.
And with that awesome title combined.
Just because I match your pants. That's the only reason you like the tie.
But the one thing I'd say, but it's our view that, like, right now, power infrastructure, it's essentially going to be really a super cycle that's going on in terms of infrastructure, nat gas power, because AI, because of fueling the data centers. So quantum's on the other side of that. But for now, it's going to be, I mean, this is really a golden age on the energy infrastructure side that's AI driven.
So the people with all this compute and all these data centers, the energy, they don't have to worry about when they see the rise of these quantum players?
Because right now it's still like less than 4% of companies have gone down the AI path. Data centers are still getting built relative to where they're still.
And I don't mean to belabor the point completely. While you're here, do want to quickly ask you about NVIDIA and what was said last night. Did we clear the bar for the next inning? I guess if you wanted to put it that way.
Look, yeah, I think when the godfather of AI speaks, everyone listens. And I think what Jensen's talking about is showing like demand's accelerating. And this doesn't even include China, doesn't even include physical AI. It goes to our view. We've talked about $6 trillion for NVIDIA's market cap and maybe ultimately $7 trillion as it's going to play out. It's also bullish for hyperscalers and it's bullish for the rest of the tech trade in terms of where this is all going. And that's why I just think like the bears continue to be in hibernation mode and this sends them.
So the bears continue to be in hibernation mode. All right, let's just get a couple key points that he mentioned here. So I was talking about IBM, or the CEO Arvind Krishna, not getting enough credit for positioning IBM to take advantage of this new quantum space, right? To be a big player in the quantum space. So he also says that quantum is not replacing artificial intelligence, but he believes that it is a play on the AI theme, which, I think is also pretty true. I mean, if you look at it, we have all of these derivative plays. We have the semiconductors, we have, the networking equipment, we have the data centers, but not only the data centers, what goes into a data center, who's constructing them. You have Eaton, you have power companies, utility companies that are going to benefit from all of this. And then now we have quantum chips, right? We also talked about the photonics. We talked about the optics, right? The opticals that are going to go, fiber optics that are going to go in there. I mean, there's tons of names that are associated with this space. As a matter of fact, I have to go look at this transcript for Jensen Huang because Taiwan, yes, Taiwan, not Taiwan Semiconductor, Taiwan, the stock market is full of names that are starting to become important to this whole AI trade. You have AMD, Lisa Su, that starting to strike up a lot of business out there in Taiwan as well. So maybe Taiwan. I don't invest in foreign markets. I invest in America. I believe in America. But this would be this would be unheard of if the Taiwan stock market, which is full of all of these, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh derivative plays, start to get a boost from all of the AI spend that's happening in America. So that is something I am considering looking into. I think it's very important. So quantum is still very early stage. He called it a super cycle, which, I mean, everything is a super cycle at this point. We have the commodity super cycle. I call it the government super cycle. We have the Bitcoin, Ethereum super cycles that'll start happening because of all the inflation and rampant government spending and monetary, monetary fiat debasement that's going on. So now we have a quantum super cycle that is potentially going to heat up. Okay. And government support is becoming a big part of this. We already know the Trump administration, the US government has taken stakes in mining companies for, critical rare earths, all that stuff. They've taken stakes in companies like Intel, right, to build the foundry, to really beef up our domestic foundry business and not just be over reliant on TSMC Taiwan Semi. And now they're talking about the quantum space. They made huge investments in a couple names, which we're going to be covering here in just a moment. But you also have energy infrastructure names. There's an ETF out there, POW. Okay, I think it's from Vista Shares, but that is a ETF I have been looking at. I have not bought in, not started a position, but it is an ETF I've been looking at because if you're thinking about this super cycle for data centers and data center build out, you're going to need all these utility companies. You're going to need all this electricity. You're going to need all these third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh derivative plays. That power, piece, that power story could be a part of all of that. So that is something I'm looking into myself. I haven't opened a position, but also the hyperscalers. He also mentioned the hyperscalers. The hyperscalers are the ones driving a lot of this, all the spend, $700 billion worth of CapEx spend. And that's going to increase. Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, has forecasted up to $3 to $4 trillion by 2030. We are in 2026. That's not that far along. It'll probably be $1 trillion in CapEx spend next year. Okay, so it's just getting crazier and crazier. We have Sergio putting it in the chat: CPU plus GPU plus QPU plus TPU equals AGI. Again, one day we're gonna have to get you on the channel, Sergio, so you could talk your book about quantum. Would definitely like to hear what you have to say, because I certainly don't have all the time in the day to research quantum, and I still barely understand it. I was looking at the technical perspective, like how the chips work. You can in quantum space, you can have something be yes and no, 0 and 1 at the same time. But something such as like a noise, not frequency, but noise. Vibrations, like me talking, can actually disrupt the quantum state of these chips, which is kind of fascinating. But anyways, okay, cool. So we heard from Dan Ives. All right, let's keep it going. We're pretty much at minute 40, so I got about 20-ish minutes to get this wrapped up. So we're going to listen to Tom Lee also talk about NVIDIA earnings. Okay, so we just heard from Dan Ives. I like to listen to Dan Ives. He's a pretty good fund manager. He runs the Ives ETF. He's also the chairman of Orbs, which is a company focused on proof of human, which is honestly, I started looking into this. It is getting kind of crazy with all the AI slop out there, all the AI videos. You can't tell what's real and what's fake. People complain about Twitter and Reddit and all these, public forums that have, a lot of bots. You don't know what's real. You have, scam groups that create thousands and thousands and thousands of bot accounts to hype up either a stock, to hype up a narrative, or to hype up, an agenda. So this proof of human concept is actually really interesting. So it's something I'm diving into. Again, it's more of a crypto, but Orbs, it does have a stake in OpenAI. Dan Ives is the chairman of Orbs, and consider it like a BM&R of, that crypto, whatever the crypto is. I think it's called Orbs, actually. But anyways, let's listen in on what Tom Lee has to say about NVIDIA earnings, because that is still very important. So let's listen in on what he has to say.
Is the AI trade about to take its next leg higher? Let's ask Tom Lee. He's Fundstrat's head of research. Welcome back. So how do you assess this now? We've cleared the way, right? All the AI stuff's now out of the way. We're looking at yields, we're looking at oil, we're looking at the Middle East. But how do you feel about this market when you just heard Chris Harvey at the top of our show saying we're going to have an everything rally that's going to take us past 8,000 by the end of the year?
Yeah, Scott. I think the market is pretty healthy. It showed resilience in the face of higher oil, higher yields. But I also think the U.S. is pretty unique because we do have a structural driver for the economy, which is not only is the U.S. the producer AI, but we are also relatively energy independent, and that's been exposed by this war. And the consumer's in pretty good shape. So I think there is a pretty good runway. So I'd agree with the idea that stocks, compared to the start of this year, have more upside into year end. We've got a few things we have to work through as we get later through the year, but I think for now the fundamentals are healthy, and that's supported by earnings.
I don't know what shape the consumer's in, to be honest with you. I mean, I understand the K-shaped economy, obviously. Top of the K is better than the bottom of the K in terms of the durability to keep spending. But you listen to Walmart, which was pretty cautious, and you're like, what is the real state of the consumer? And if oil prices remain elevated for too long, is that the thing that wrecks the story?
Scott, yeah, it is, in a way it is K-shaped, because if I had to say, okay, what are the things that are sort of ballast and things moving the consumer? Of course, we know that it's higher gasoline, higher food, and of course, there's going to be a shortage of some petroleum products. But on the other end of that spectrum is, the wealth that's going to be created by the IPO of SpaceX, OpenAI, et cetera. I mean, that's several $1 trillion worth. And as we know, there's like a marginal propensity to consume from the wealth effect. So I think the consumer is getting a tailwind later this year, but a lot of it is for those who own equity.
I mean, a tailwind from owning the IPOs?
Well, it's actually in private investors. As we know, SpaceX was probably seeded at, $50 million. It probably raised, tens of billions over the last decade. But now it's going to have a net worth valuation of around 1.7 trillion. So that's actually now going to be monetized for the LPs of the funds that invested in SpaceX. So there, several $1 trillion is quite a lot of stimulus to the economy.
Wow. Okay. Hampton's real estate market. Watch out. AI trade. How do you feel about it after?
So one interesting thing that Tom Lee is talking about is the amount of money that's in OpenAI, Anthropic, SpaceX, right? I was listening to another podcast or another show on investing investing. So shout out to his channel, absolutely fantastic commentary. But he brought up a good point some time ago, and he said that like these investors who are in these big names right now, and they've been invested for 5-10 years, they want to get their money out. And, one of the fears that I personally have of getting into a name like SpaceX or OpenAI or Anthropic is being used for exit liquidity, right? Is being used for exit liquidity. I'd be kind of pissed off if I had dumped in and then, see the stock just absolutely get tumbled or pummeled down, right? So there is that risk. There is that possibility. Of course, there's usually lockups that happen, for IPOs. The previous investors, they have like about a 90-day lockup or 30-day, 60-day, whatever, is I guess agreed on, or whatever the SEC says. But that risk is still a thing, right? That risk is still there. And, if these investors, these LPs, limited partners, if they were to take their money out and go invest in other stuff, I mean, that's money. That's billions of dollars of money that they're going to start throwing around at other companies, right? So this is bullish, right? This is very bullish for the general stock market. So let's continue listening on what Tom Lee has to say.
NVIDIA.
I mean, a company with the size of revenues, NVIDIA, growing at 8%, I think shows that there is still, unrelenting demand for the product NVIDIA sells. And then we know that those who are starting to use AI are actually noticing a gain of function on productivity. Ken Griffin really stated it well when he says he could see it's replacing a lot of analysts. So to me, I think not only are the users of AI benefiting, but there's still a shortage of those who are supplying the equipment.
But aren't you still calling for a pullback in stocks and something meaningful? Like the one we had already didn't really qualify, if you will, under what you were thinking could happen, right?
That's right, Scott. I think we had like what Ed Yardeni would call a rolling bear market in things like Mag 7, and of course last year in energy, but in software, et cetera. But I think later this year, the market is going to confront a few things. One, of course, is just your typical midterm.
All right, I have to skip this, the rest of this, but he's going to talk about, like why, based on history, we've seen charts that basically show that every time a new Fed comes into the Federal Reserve, there's a market correction or the market tests the Fed, as he calls it. There's usually a pullback, 10%, 10-15% has usually been around the average. So his case is that, with this new Fed coming in, it's going to be tested. And of course, he's going to be tested. Next month, we should hear from him. And we are stuck in a rock and a hard place, right? You have inflation, you have the Fed dissenting down the middle. All right, some want rate cuts, some want rate hikes, right? That's also coming into the picture now, right? Some want to keep the rates completely flat. So, wait for the data to come out. You have the Trump administration saying that as soon as this deal is done, that oil is going to come down and, inflation is going to come down along with it. So that is what he is mentioning when he's talking about the market testing this new Fed, Kevin Warsh, when he gets sworn in on Friday. So we will hopefully hear something. Maybe Kevin Warsh is going to have a press conference after the fact, and maybe he'll kind of shed some light on his thoughts. Again, a lot of people were worried that he's too hawkish, right? Because he's been very hawkish. He was part of the Fed Board of Governors when the United States had hit, I think it was 2008, 2009, the great financial crisis. And at that time, the Fed, their idea of a solution was to print, baby, print. So they printed an insane amount of money. Kevin Warsh did not agree with this, and that's why people view him as hawkish. So he ended up departing the Fed and ended up working for Stanley Druckenmiller. Okay, you guys know who Druckenmiller is, legendary investor. So he's worked under him for quite a bit, and now he's in charge of the Fed. So finance is cool, guys. Absolutely cool. It is so such a small circle of people. But anyways, that's Tom Lee's thoughts. I meant to go back to this, okay? Meant to go back to the whole quantum thing because there was a few stocks that had some big wins, and I just want to cover them real fast just so you guys can see what happened. All right, so we have first up IonQ. This is a big quantum name. It had a 12% jump in the day on this news. All right, we also have D-Wave. All right, D-Wave is another name that was a beneficiary of this investment from the, from the administration. D-Wave jumped up 33%, and it actually climbed a lot higher after hours, it seems. Yeah. Oh, let's see. Hold on. Or maybe that's accounting for after hours too. Well, 27%. So I'm guessing pre-market and then aftermarket. So absolutely crazy there, right? If you guys don't want to pick and choose the winners, if you guys want a basket, one ETF I've been looking at, and I wish I didn't step on that fish, but I had bought this. Because this is how I freaking look at shares. I have to keep things at the top of mind. So I usually buy a share to keep it at the top of my list, just to make sure it's at the top of mind. And I did see a nice little pullback on it. I didn't buy it. I got completely distracted with a bunch of other stuff. And then the day came, today, the announcement, and WQTM from Wisdom Tree is a quantum fund that holds a basket of ETFs, IonQ, D-Wave, or Jetty, at the top of the list, along with Intel, right? Which is interesting. But this ETF saw a 7% climb. All right. So if you guys are in any of these names, congratulations. All right. I'm sure you guys are very, very happy with the outlook. Okay. So moving on from quantum, we already covered that. Let's see. This is pretty much, we're at 50 minutes. I'm going to skip this because I really want to get to this last segment of news because I have to get going here soon. But we have some huge news about Bitcoin. And let me just post this real quick. Some other quantum names. INFQ says Padre. We also have Q-Tum from Defiance. Rigetti was similar, says MJ Bowhunter. Keel, which I don't think is a quantum play. I don't believe so. Maybe it is. I haven't done any research into Keel. I know they were like a miner turned data center. But anyways, we have Rodstamon saying Keel 16% in 2 days. And then we have Padre saying gold just building its time, or biding its time waiting. And I'm in agreement right there. It's gonna be a spring. What is it? A spring loaded asset. Anyways. So going back to Bitcoin, okay, this is massive news. It is not passed. All right. This is probably, kind of a newsworthy item though. So regarding the Bitcoin reserve, they're talking about introducing a new bill because one of the fears is that as soon as Trump leaves and whatever president we get next is going to, if they're anti-Bitcoin, anti-crypto, they're just going to nix that whole Bitcoin reserve. Okay. So this is an interesting thing here. So let's listen in on this clip.
The administration is pushing for global crypto dominance in the US. Darren Botello is with us. He's on Capitol Hill, actually. In plain English, how are they going to do it, Darren?
Hi, good morning, Stuart. So the president is asking the Fed to review allowing crypto and fintech firms to store their money in the central bank. And this comes after Kraken got access to the central bank back in March. So they were the first. Now other banks want the same kind of access. But in Washington, as you know, an executive order is only as good as the president who's in the White House. The next person that takes over, they could completely change that. That's why in a Fox Business exclusive, Congressman Nick Begich is introducing a bill, he says, to lock in Trump's plan and officially establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Begich tells Fox Business that this is basically the new Fort Knox.
In order to maintain the sovereignty of the U.S. dollar and the strength of the U.S. dollar, you've got to have a strong reserve policy. That's why central banks around the world for so many years, thousands of years, in fact, have held reserves on their balance sheet. We need to recognize that digital assets are the 21st century equivalent of those historical gold reserves.
So Begich wants the government to stockpile 5% of all Bitcoin, which is equivalent to how much of the world's gold the U.S. stores and reserves. And he already found a way to fund it without taxpayers. The Treasury is currently sucking up crypto assets tied to Iran through Operation Economic Fury. Begich's plan, seize the Ayatollah's crypto and drop it straight into the U.S. balance sheet. But he warns the GOP cannot afford to drag its feet. Conservatives have a tight 6-month window to pass this bill and lock the into law, while Republicans still control both houses of Congress. So, of course, as we know, the clock is ticking with the...
Okay, so this new bill that's coming to the floor, all right, we're going to go over it here, and this is coming from Bitcoin.com, but you heard him. Iran also has about $7.7 billion worth of Bitcoin somewhere hidden. but they're also trying to get their hands on that, right? And that's what would help fuel this reserve. But this I thought was extremely interesting regarding this new ARMA bill. Okay, so U.S. lawmakers proposed the ARMA bill to build a 1 million Bitcoin strategic reserve. All right, similar to like MicroStrategy that's aiming for 1 million, or really realistically trying to get to 5% of the network, similar to like BMNR, 5% of the network. So now we have the United States trying to get to 5%, well, probably a little more, a little less, 5% of the network. 1 million Bitcoin is absolutely crazy. So here we go. Okay, so the bill would extend the provisions of the establishment of the strategic Bitcoin reserve in the United States digital asset stockpile, executive order signed by President Trump March 6, 2025, with some new additions. All right, so they put out a nice little thing here. I forgot to add all these links into the show notes. I'll do it at the conclusion of this stream because I think we're using old show notes. But anyways, ARMA establishes a Bitcoin reserve and a digital asset stockpile to be managed by the U.S. Department of the Treasury and requires all federal agencies to provide full accounting of digital assets held in their possession. So we know the U.S. Marshal Service has a bunch of Bitcoin because they, helped shut down a couple of, scam rings, etc. Probably the FBI has a bunch, and who else or whoever else has a bunch of Bitcoin that they ended up taking or seizing from bad actors. Okay, so the legislation empowers the Treasury to acquire up to 200,000 Bitcoin per year for 5 years, aiming to reach a goal of 1 million Bitcoin under federal custody, building on what boosting innovation, technology, and competitive through optimized investment nationwide, or Bitcoin Act. Okay, introduced by Senator Cynthia Loomis. You guys have heard me talk about her before. She's been spearheading the Clarity Act. She is basically a Bitcoin advocate. Okay, under ARMA, the Bitcoin purchases would be conducted, and this is a crazy thing right here, conducted in a budget neutral way using gold revaluation to produce the funds needed for these acquisitions. It also introduces strict custody standards to avoid loss of digital assets due to unsafe security measures. Okay, so maybe the quantum risk, but the Bitcoin purchases would be purchased in a basically we saw an article not too long ago where Trump had requested how much gold does Fort Knox actually have, how much gold is actually on the balance sheet, right? So now they want to value that gold at today's levels and then basically arbitrage whatever that difference is into Bitcoin. So that to me is absolutely insane, pretty crazy, pretty incredible stuff. This is some Fugazi stuff that the government is doing, but I think it's pretty damn cool. So now you have, again, the USG, the US government, very interested in the strategic Bitcoin reserve, right? Begit stated that ARMA positions the United States to lead confidently in the digital age while protecting taxpayer interests, strengthening financial sovereignty, and reinforcing the principles of transparency and sound stewardship, also reinforcing the relevance of private property rights in the digital currency ecosystem. Administrations have auctioned it off or held it in reserve according to the whims of the executive branch by creating a strategic reserve with the weight of the law. The ARMA reinforces stability and gives Congress more time to establish long-term policy for how the federal government approaches cryptocurrency. So absolutely amazing stuff coming out of this. Again, this is just proposed. It is not law. Don't go crazy. Again, people were all pissed off that Bitcoin and Ethereum dropped on news of the Clarity Act. And they're like, oh, why is it dropping? Why is it dropping? It's not law yet. Like, it's not the law yet. It just passed a committee. Like, relax, calm down, guys. And even so, I mean, Bitcoin, Ethereum got to this point without any regulation, without any of that stuff. So let it cook. Just leave it alone. Stop getting all emotional. So anyways, that is my little rant about that. Okay, let's see what else we have. I think that was it for the stream. I was going to cover Michael Saylor talking about his digital credit, but I'm going to forego that because I'm pretty much at the top of the hour and I do have to get going here. Just for everyone else, I'm not sure if he's listening in on this live stream, but I will be going on THB's channel here in the not too distant future, literally probably within the next 5 to 10 minutes. We'll be doing a live stream together talking about just high yield investing or investing in general finance topics, etc. So it should be a pretty good conversation we're having. Again, it's just a conversation. So if you guys want to join in, you guys can head over to his channel, THB Finance. All right. That is the channel handle. All right. So anyways, let me also give a shameless plug out to us, me and Skeptic over here, because again, we are doing a collaboration, and we are doing a collaboration on talking about ETFs. EUV was the last ETF we talked about. We got a slew of ETFs we want to talk about, but schedules get in the way, and we're trying our best to get stuff done. But yeah, we will definitely be doing a ton more videos on only ETFs. And I hope you guys like the rebranding. All right. The last one was more so a joke. It was a play on OnlyFans, if you guys didn't figure that out. So now, we want to get this a little more professional. But yes, only ETFs. Handle is at only ETFs on YouTube if you guys want to check them out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. All right. I hope you guys had a lot of fun, got some value. Again, I appreciate all of your support. All right. Both the viewers and the super chatters and the chatters and everyone else. All right. Again, shameless plug. If you guys want access to that Discord, down below, there's a link you guys can click. It will send you a link to the Discord. Again, no paywall. We don't sell you anything. It's just a community of investors, and we just talk shop. That's really it. All right. Even if you want to go and lurk and just lurk around, I mean, that's perfectly fine too. But just remember that people, those who contribute, I guess, or those who are asking questions, are the ones that are going to get the most value from this stuff. Okay. All right. So outside of that, appreciate you guys. I will see you guys in the next stream. You guys have a wonderful night, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And you guys take care. All right. Take care.